Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa Arrighi, the Plymouth Town Manager. I'm starting something new today. It's something that I have talked about with PACTV for some time, but it's going to be a quick 30-minute show that I do weekly that is called Truth Be Told. And what the show is going to be about is just things local to Plymouth. And I'm mostly going to walk through my town manager's report. I'll occasionally have guests on the show. And then towards the end of every show, I'm just going to spotlight something that is happening either out in the public or in social media or just in emails or in questions that I receive, not just rumors, but other topics that come up throughout the community where I think maybe people need a little bit more facts about it, and I'm happy to provide those. So one of the things I'd like to talk about first is resources. So there are so many resources available to all the residents of this community and visitors if they really want to know what's going on. One of the places I recommend first is our town website, and we'll make sure that in the future we put these right on the show, but it's www.plymouth-ma.gov with the backslash. And this website is really going to feed you the most up-to-date information that we have. Now, like every community, we can do a better job of taking down the older information, but we really do try and keep it current. So please check that out. In addition, I do a lengthy town manager's report every week that has quite a bit of information in it. If you go to that town website and you look under news, you can find this town manager's report with really everything that's occurring, what are long-term goals that we have, some of the issues that come up week to week, and then a section that I think people have found really helpful, which is called Q&A. And it's questions that I receive from the community at large, from employees, from other people, and I try and address them right in the back of the report. So you may find things that your neighbors have asked you in the past, or that somebody that you see in the grocery store asks you. So if you have an opportunity, please check it out. Finally, we also use a Twitter account for quick clips of information that might be available. We use WATD. I try and go on once a week and let the public know what is happening on the select board meeting. And then certainly here on PACTV, although I haven't done a lot of shows in the past, and this is the first time I've committed to a weekly show, PACTV provides just a plethora of information about what's happening in Plymouth. And the last thing I'd like to say on that topic is I am always reachable. So my email address is marighi@plymouth-ma.gov. I respond as quickly as I can, so please feel free to reach out to me. I hope to reopen the town hall very soon to the public. You can always stop by and see me or make an appointment. I try and be as accessible as possible. So what I'd like to start with is walking you through some of the highlights in my last few town managers reports. The first topic I'm going to speak to is the one that's on everybody's minds right now, and that is vaccinations. We are working on 3 different fronts on vaccinations. The first is there is a private partnership in the community. Beth Israel Leahy Health has begun inviting their eligible patients, now this is just their patients, to schedule appointments for COVID-19 vaccine. Now, when I say invite, it's very important to remember with this that if you are a patient, you will hear from them. They don't currently have a waiting list. You can't reach out to them directly, but if they contact you, they do have a site here in town where they will be providing those vaccinations. In addition, there is another facility in the town that is now following that same process. They're reaching out to their patients. So keep that in mind that if you are a patient and you hear from any of these locations, you want to get back to them as quickly as possible. We're also working on a private-public partnership. Brewster Ambulance, who you know is your ambulance service provider here in Plymouth, and the town are working to open vaccination clinics, potentially at the Center for Active Living in the near future. Now, this is predicated on having the location approved and receiving assurances and a guarantee on the number of vaccinations that we will be able to have, that Brewster Ambulance can secure, so that we certainly don't have people signing up or even going to the Center for Active Living and not having the vaccine available. So we will put out more information on that when we are ready to do so and when we have that security on the number of vaccines. But I don't think I should ever mention this without thanking our local Firefighters Association, as well as the state, the Plymouth Firefighters of Massachusetts, because they were really instrumental in partnering with Brewster Ambulance and the state to even provide a program like this. There's another private-public partnership that we were in early discussions with owner and managers of a couple medical facilities that may be able to expand their existing vaccination effort to our residents in Plymouth. My recommendation would be that we start with veterans, and obviously we will stay within the state guidelines of those that are eligible at the moment. We would hold it in a public building, and we're still looking at where we would like to hold this and when we can. We are thinking about Memorial Hall because of its central location. It's a big undertaking, but we will let you know if that occurs, and we'll post that information everywhere we can. I also thought I would mention on another topic, but one that has become more and more important to Plymouth. The residents in this community have for a long time placed a lot of weight and a lot of care on their natural resources. You saw that years ago when this town supported establishing the Department of Marine and Environmental Affairs, a whole department that's dedicated to this town's natural resources. As part of that, we have an active group in town that really cares about climate change initiatives and what Plymouth is doing in terms of efforts on that front, as well as what's called an MVP program. It was a municipal vulnerability grant that we received a couple years ago, and it came out with recommendations of how we can be better stewards of our resources here in Plymouth. Water, our land, trees, environment in general. You saw, if you watched this recent select board meeting, the select board just adopted a new vehicle use policy that really speaks to vehicles that are more energy efficient. And the reason that they're doing that is they want to be part of this change that we need to make throughout this whole country. I wanted to just list a couple of our achievements over the years on this front. First, we have done dam removals in the community. Now, this has been pretty public, so maybe you've read it before, but the Holmes Dam right by the skate park, the Billington Street Dam, off Billington Street Dam, and the Plimco Dam have all been removed in the last decade. And those are huge accomplishments for this community. In addition, we've done work at the Sawmill Pond Dam, the Eel River, and the Beaver Dam Brook. So these are expensive and time-consuming projects that town meeting has supported and the public has supported at large, and they've been overseen predominantly by a Department of Marine and Environmental Affairs. That's the department I mentioned a few moments ago that Plymouth supported creating just to concentrate on these kind of projects. In addition, I think many of you know that we've done coastal protection in terms of sea level rise and coastal storm damage. We've done that along Warrens Cove at Long Beach, the revetment in front of Burt's and Pilgrim Sands, cobble nourishment at the washover areas, and lots of repairs to the dike. And we've worked pretty closely with federal agencies and state agencies on all those efforts. We've done a management plan at Whitehorse Beach. And if you didn't know, we're about to get quite a bit of publicity out about some changes at Whitehorse Beach. And although not necessarily related to municipal preparedness in terms of the environment, it does have to do with a big change in terms of parking. And people that have been here, whether it's a short time or a long time, really have said, we need to do something about the parking at Whitehorse Beach. And this year, after years of talking about it, the select board did approve a new parking program for that area. It will take effect for this season. We'll be putting out a lot of information to the residents about it because it is a pretty big change. You will now need some kind of beach parking pass in order to pass or in order to park in many of the areas right around there. So we know that we need to get that word out. We certainly don't want our residents or visitors to start getting ticketed. So we will work closely with our police department so people have an easy approach to what they need to do to follow the new rules down there. But it's a very, very similar program to the parking requirements that we have throughout the rest of the community at our beaches. So stay tuned as we get out more, as we release more information about how that is going to work. So those are some of the bigger projects that we've done through Marine and Environmental Affairs, and one that we want the public to be aware of because you should be proud of your accomplishments in the town and what you've done to protect these resources. Now, when we talk about resources, we also have some major challenges. And one of the things that has come up most recently is how our outfall pipe in the Plymouth Harbor affects the aquaculture that we have been encouraging there for years now. And we have some challenges ahead. As you know, you have a very active wastewater treatment plant. And the permit that we have with the state for that wastewater treatment plant allows that treated effluent to be released to the harbor. Now it's been treated, but when you release that to the harbor, the federal government has some concerns about now the aquaculture industry and where exactly that outfall pipe is. So we need to work on potentially some changes that we can make with that outfall pipe. Now this needs to be studied. We need appropriate data to make the right decision. We need public input. And so you are going to begin to see, if you watch regular select board meetings, that we're going to be talking about the steps that we can take next to both work with the Department of Marine Fisheries at the state level, as well as the FDA at the federal level, in order to continue to encourage, help, and support that aquaculture industry, which, as you know, we like to talk a lot about fishing being one of the original reasons that people were attracted to the town of Plymouth. So we support our local fishermen and we support this whole industry. So as staff, we're going to try and do everything we can to make sure they continue to flourish. And in order to do that, we might have to take a serious look, or not might have to, we have to take a serious look at this outfall pipe and see if there are other methods for us to release our treated effluent that will in no way have an impact or have a negative impact on this industry. I have some good news about grants. The school department was notified last week that they received a $2.7 million grant from the Federal CARES Act for use through August of 2023. So I want to congratulate the school department on receiving this. We are very pleased. We hope it's going to go a long way in all the additional costs they are incurring as they try and balance what is happening with COVID-19 and school children and learning, and our teachers who in our school administration who have worked so hard to make this a success in an environment they never imagined they would be in when they went to school to go into that line of work or that profession. We don't know how that will affect the budget yet. We are interested in looking to the next couple of years in our budget and doing some longer term financial planning. The select board has really endorsed and encouraged over the past 6 months or so that we look at a multi-year approach to our budgeting that avoids an override in this community for as long as possible. So that's that is what we should all strive for. I think that anyone that lives here, pays taxes here, does not want to see an override in our future. So I think if we all group together, we take a hard look at our budget every year. What are some things that we can do differently? We are going to be able to keep that override off for quite some time. And receiving grants like this is one of the first steps to helping us do that. And Plymouth does have a pretty great track record in applying for and being successful in receiving grants. So this is just an encouragement if any staff are watching this show to keep up the good work, because we're always pleased to announce when we are a recipient of a grant award. I also wanted to mention while we're talking, I want to talk a little bit about after hours. So a line I heard recently from a resident is that public service doesn't end when the workday ends. And I agree with that approach. However, there's also a practical side to that. And when you do need services, and I'm not talking about police and fire, I'm talking about other governmental services, water main break, a tree in the street falls down, some kind of after hours issue that you need help with right away. What do you do? So when we were looking at that issue, one of the things that we saw is Plymouth didn't have a succinct one place to go to report that. We had an individual procedure in the water department that worked quite well. We had an individual procedure for snow that worked well, but not one local spot. So the assistant town manager, Marlene McCollum, has been gathering with the different staff members, both department and division heads, to get their feedback on what they get for concerns after hours. Pretty soon, you're going to see on our main website a one-click button where it will give you information on what the procedure is to reach out to us after hours. For the most part, that'll be calling the non-emergency line item. The non-emergency phone line at the police department, because those dispatchers do a great job of knowing who to reach out to for what issue after hours. But I still think it's going to be helpful to have that one spot where everybody can know, maybe not every single issue, we always have surprises, but for the most part, what they do. One that I can think of off the top of my head that happened about 8 months ago now was, it was a car accident, and the car went into a residential home, and there was quite a bit of damage. So our fire department, through the dispatch, knew right away how to get hold of somebody from our building department so they could go out and do an inspection. And I believe this was on a Saturday night, fairly late. So we are available, but we're just going to do a better job of letting our residents know how they go about contacting us. And we'll try and put as many examples as we can think of that have happened over the past decade out there. And hopefully we'll be able to target all of them, but as new things come up, we'll add to that. I want to talk a little bit about my goals over the next year or so. So obviously COVID and establishing a vaccination clinic, helping to get our residents vaccinated is first and foremost on things that we need to make happen in this town. But there's a couple more goals that they don't come before everything else. Daily operations are the most important, but these are things that I would like to accomplish. Continue the work that we're doing on our facilities. We made a commitment 2 years ago now to really update our fire stations that were built in the 70s. And now that these men and women are actually living in these quarters, they have 24-hour shifts. It's very different than it was back in the 70s and 80s. We know how much they need to be updated, and that wasn't done for years and years. So we're investing quite a bit of time and money into upgrading these facilities. I think that goal should continue. And as part of that, you're going to see at the upcoming town meeting a dedicated revenue source that will go directly for facilities maintenance. And I think that will pass. I think the town will be very supportive of that effort. So that will be something we will continue to pursue. Collective bargaining agreements, those are all your union employees throughout the town and the school. Their contracts are going to expire this June 30th. So we need to actively get into negotiations and settle more multi-year contracts. So the select board are part of that process now. As a charter change that we have, a select board member will be sitting at the table for negotiations with all those groups. So we're looking forward to starting that. In addition, we are working with Holtec at the power plant as they have decommissioned and are going through that process to come up with a new tax payment agreement, a multi-year one. This community deserves to have a set amount that they know is coming in from that power plant over the next few years. So we're in active negotiations now. They are not easy, but this is something that I think we need to resolve sooner rather than later. So I believe both sides are working very hard to make that happen. Outside dining. Some people loved it. Some people thought that there were some areas that we could improve when it comes to the outside dining that was happening on Main and Court Street. So the Chamber of Commerce has done yeoman's work when it comes to reaching out to those businesses and restaurants and trying to get a resolution with some changes from last year's approach. They've almost been successful, but if any of you have seen the recent select board meeting, and some of the businesses and restaurants still had some concerns. So we have temporarily brought that into this office. I am working with the chiefs, with the DPW director, Jonathan Beater, as well as the chamber and some other staff members, including our transportation engineer and the administrative assistant here in this office, who is incredibly organized, Tiffany Park. And we have mapped out that whole area. I feel really confident that over the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to bring 2 real options to the select board. So I'm looking forward to resolving that this week. And then if any businesses or restaurants in that downtown area, I will be reaching out to as many of you as I can to meet one-on-one with you up here in the office with masks on, so that we can go through that map and see if we have almost satisfied everything you need to make your business a success for this summer. So I'm looking forward to having resolution on that. And I want to thank everyone that has been involved. And my last couple of goals for this year is making some changes to the capital process. That is, the capital process is all items that town meeting approved that have a lifespan 5 years or more and cost over $15,000. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of projects and equipment that fall into that realm. We need to make some improvements, both in the existing bylaw about capital as well as in the charter. So I'm lucky, a woman from the Capital Improvement Committee has agreed to help work with me on that process. Selectman Joyce is the member, a select board member on the Capital Improvement Committee. She doesn't know this yet, but I'm also going to reach out to her to give a hand with that process. And we hope to potentially make some improvements on that over the next 6 months. And finally, one of my goals is what I mentioned earlier, is working on that whole outfall pipe issue and keeping up on this show and ways to communicate with the public. So that's what we're working on here in the town manager's office. And I'm looking forward to continuing this show and reaching out, telling all of you, if you ever want to reach out to me, I'm available. Now we're going to switch gears for a minute. And I want to do what we're really calling a spotlight. And it's not going to be a spotlight on social media. It's not going to be a spotlight on rumors. It's just going to be a spotlight on something that has been brought to my attention that I need to clear up, or that I need to provide more factual information, so that you've heard of things going viral. Well, sometimes what goes viral is misinformation. So I thought that this might be a nice opportunity to I'll have different people on the show that tell me what they're hearing for, you know, the misinformation of the day, or whatever, however they want to word it. So I want to do the one that's come up in the last couple of days, and really for all intents and purposes has come up over the last few months. And that is, Plymouth does not have a vaccination clinic because someone dropped the ball. And an elected official who told me yesterday that the Plymouth town manager doesn't want a vaccination clinic because she can't provide the public safety staff that would be needed. So let's start right off with neither one of those can be the furthest from the truth. I would love to see vaccination clinics here in town. We're working really hard on a mobile unit with Brewster Ambulance that can target our homebound population. In addition, we're working with these private organizations I mentioned earlier, and we are trying to find a way to make it happen. We just need everybody to keep in mind that until the vaccinations are available at the state level, and if you've turned on the news lately or you've picked up a newspaper, you know the state has been pretty forthright in saying the number of vaccinations that we're receiving right now must be dedicated to the clinics that have already been approved. As we receive more vaccinations, and we can commit to allocating those to different locations, we'll open up more super sites or regional locations or other. So we are in the queue for that. I worked with the Kingston Town Administrator earlier this week to send a letter to the state, as well the governor, the lieutenant governor, as well as the Department of Public Health, that we will do anything we can to assist them in making the old Kingston Mall one of those sites. And we have offered up the Senior Center, Memorial Hall for smaller sites. We want this to happen. Every department, police, fire, public works will pitch in order to help that. So we certainly would have staff available to assist. I don't know where the rumor started, but I'm letting you know that it's not true. The other one that I mentioned was that Plymouth dropped the ball, and that also can't be further from the truth. Karen Keene, our public health director, and our really active and dedicated Board of Health, as well as this office and our select board, tried everything we could very early on to get engaged in the process of holding a site here. I'm not sure we had a big enough site to offer. You see some of the locations now, Foxborough Stadium, Marshfield, Fairgrounds. We weren't selected, but that doesn't mean we don't continue to try to hold one here, and we will actively pursue that further. So if you have any other questions about that, I've answered a lot of those in my town manager reports in that Q&A section, and I'm always here to answer questions for you. That will do it today for Truth Be Told, and I look forward to seeing all of you next week.